Nothing is more foolish than clinging to what is no longer present. Even before the words change, before the gestures cool down, before her gaze starts to drift elsewhere, you already feel it. Absence doesn't begin when she leaves. It begins in the silence of someone who's already leaving on the inside. And your instinct, almost automatic, is to try to fix it. You make an effort, speak more softly, give more attention, plan surprises, and the more you try, the more she seems to slip away. It's a silent desperation. You're still there, fully present, trying to save something that was yours for a brief moment, but now is slipping through your fingers. And the pain isn't just the fear of losing her, it's the helplessness of watching the end approach and not being able to stop it. But Seneca said, nothing is more foolish than clinging to what is no longer present. And what does that mean? It means that attachment, when born out of fear, is not love. It's illusion. It's a desperate attempt to hold on to something that, in reality, has already stopped choosing you. This video isn't about tricks. It's not about getting her back. It's about coming back to yourself. Because true power isn't about convincing her to stay. It's about remaining standing, even when she chooses to go. The deep anguish of the man listening to this now is clear. Feeling discarded without even knowing what he did wrong. Feeling forgotten by someone who, just yesterday, said you were everything. Feeling useless even after giving your all. But behind all of that lies a hidden desire, and it's nobler than it seems. You don't just want her back. You want to stop losing yourself for any woman who decides to walk away. You want to learn how to hold your own energy, even when her eyes no longer light up for you. You want to stop begging for attention and become the kind of man who imposes presence, even in silence, who inspires respect even without words, who attracts not because he insists, but because he remains whole. That's the turning point. That's the beginning of your true comeback. Not of the woman, but of yourself. Because when you stop chasing her interest and start regaining your own center, the dynamic shifts and the game, silently, reverses. She stopped responding with the same excitement. The messages got shorter, the response time grew longer, the dates became rare, and the spark in her eyes was no longer the same. You notice it, but you don't accept it, and you start trying to fill in the spaces she leaves. You become more present, more affectionate, more available. In your mind, you believe that if you give more attention, more care, more presence, she'll understand, she'll appreciate it, she'll go back to how she was. But every gesture of yours just pushes her further away. Every effort becomes desperation disguised as romance. You think you're loving, but you're really trying to buy crumbs of attention at the cost of pieces of your dignity. You bend, you shape yourself, you erase yourself, and at the end of the day, she feels it and despises it, because nothing loses value faster for a woman than a man who tries too hard after she's already lost interest. The problem here isn't love, it's attachment, it's emotional dependence dressed as devotion. It's trying to hold on to what once was, using a version of a man who is no longer whole. The pain is subtle but deep. It's her distant gaze while you insist. It's the hug that no longer carries warmth. It's the kiss that comes out of politeness. It's the phrase, "I'm fine," when everything inside you screams that it's not. And then you ask yourself, what did I do wrong? The answer, you tried to compensate presence with insistence, tried to win her over again with excess, when what you needed was silence, was distance with integrity, was inner presence, not outer performance. Because the more you give without being seen, the more she gets used to the idea that you'll always be there, no matter how she treats you. And that destroys respect, and without respect, there's no desire, no connection, no coming back. That's the wound many men carry without knowing how to name it. The invisible loss of power, the pain of feeling smaller and smaller in the face of her growing absence. And all because you confused love with bargaining. and forgot that no gesture is worth it if you have to devalue yourself to offer it. But the good news, this pain can also be the turning point. The moment when you stop compensating and start reconnecting, not with her, with you, with the man who stopped existing the moment he tried to be everything, to avoid being left with nothing. What keeps desire alive isn't constant presence. It's the lightness of mystery, the subtlety of doubt, the space between one gesture and the next. Evolutionary psychology has shown women are naturally drawn to men who embody emotional stability, direction, and intelligent unpredictability. It's not the man who is unpredictable out of immaturity. It's the man who doesn't live for her. It's the man with his own life, a clear mission, and a purpose greater than the relationship itself. Female desire is delicate, but it demands firmness. It feeds on rooted presence, not on neediness that clings. And what many fail to see is that too much availability suffocates. The man who replies instantly, who's always ready, who never says no, who adapts to every request, seems kind, but becomes predictable. And predictability, to the female brain, is the beginning of disinterest. It's not about being absent, it's about being magnetic. And magnetism can't be forced, it's emitted. It's born from a man who is self-sufficient, who can love but won't fall apart, who can care but never loses his center. You become more desirable not when you're always available, but when you are truly present and still maintain your boundaries. She needs to feel that you're there by choice, not dependence, and choice requires options. She needs to know you're not on the floor waiting to be noticed, but at the top, owning your space. Desire dies where there is no more pursuit. And there is no pursuit when everything is given without resistance, without discernment, without pause. So understand, it's not about pulling away out of pride, it's about not erasing yourself out of attachment. You don't need to be cold, you need to be centered. You need to stop trying to prove you deserve love and start living as someone who already knows he is love. Because when she feels she has to win you over again, the emotional game resets, not out of manipulation, but because feminine desire is awakened by something excess destroys. The energy of someone who knows who he is and no longer needs to be reminded of it by anyone. You believe that if you show everything you feel, she'll come back. That if you declare your love once more, she'll remember who you were. That if you give everything again, flowers, promises, presents, she'll understand there's still love. But what activates the feminine mind is not emotional intensity. It's silent clarity. It's inner strength. It's the man who knows how to love but doesn't kneel. The man who knows how to feel but doesn't give in to desperation. She doesn't come closer when she senses your attachment. She comes closer when she sees that, even feeling her absence, you haven't lost your direction. She starts watching you again when you stop trying to prove your worth and start living as someone who already possesses it. Because the man who tries too hard seems lost. But the man who steps back with integrity awakens curiosity. She begins to ask herself, did he give up? Has he moved on? Is he with someone else now? And it's not about games. It's about energy, the energy of someone who returned to himself, who stopped begging for crumbs and began building his own territory, who replaced the need to be loved with the need to be true to himself. When you stop begging for answers, she starts to question. When you don't demand attention, she feels the absence of what once was guaranteed, and that void is the beginning of a new perception. She realizes she lost something she thought was permanent and starts, even if she won't admit it, to watch. She starts analyzing what you post, how you speak, what you stopped saying, and what draws her back. Isn't what you send, it's what you hold. The selective absence, the presence without appeal, the silence that doesn't beg but commands respect. You don't need more proof of love. You need more presence on your own path. Because a woman doesn't desire a man who crawls. She desires one who walks forward. And if, along that path, she decides to come back, let her come back out of admiration, not pity. Because the man who stays grounded through her absence is the only one who, even without insisting, never truly leaves her mind. You notice she's becoming more distant. She replies less. Her body no longer reaches for yours. Her attention is somewhere else, and as a reflex, you start wanting to do more. More contact, more presence, more effort. But what you need now is not to increase intensity. It's to increase your inner presence. It's to stop trying to force someone to stay by your side and start holding your own structure. First step, reorganize your schedule. Go back to the activities that used to nourish you before her. Train, study, return to your routine. Because what sustains respect is your independence of movement. It's not pretense, it's reconnection. Second point, practice intentional silence. Not the cold silence that tries to punish, but the silence that reveals strength. When you stop replying on impulse, she feels it. When you stop explaining yourself, she notices. And deep down, that creates space. And in that space, perception is born. The perception that you are no longer available for every mood swing. That you no longer adapt to every withdrawal. That you're not going to dance to whatever song she plays, and that's when she starts respecting you again. Third point, don't try to measure results. Don't analyze every gesture of hers like it's a game board. Self-control is only real when it's sustained without immediate expectation. You recenter because you need to, not to provoke a reaction. The man who tries to provoke remains a prisoner, but the man who repositions himself takes the lead. Not to manipulate her, but to stop betraying himself. And finally, understand this. When she realizes you've stopped molding yourself to her moods, something shifts. She sees herself facing a mirror she no longer controls. And a woman who no longer feels in control starts looking at you with new eyes. You don't need to push her away, but you also can't keep offering yourself out of fear of losing her. Your presence must be a safe territory, not a zone of convenience. And the only way to reclaim that is to stop chasing and start walking forward, even if it's alone. A man who feels he's losing control usually starts to fall apart, inside and out. His gaze shifts. His speech loses firmness. His gestures become rushed. His body leans forward as if begging for validation. And without realizing it, he says everything his mouth doesn't dare confess. I'm scared. I don't want to lose you. I'm still here for you. But the language of a grounded man is different. He doesn't say he's fine. He shows it. He doesn't need to fake coldness. He simply holds presence. Because the body of a man who's returned to himself communicates something rare, stability. The first point is in the breath. Anxious men breathe high and fast. Centered men breathe slow and deep. Breath is the rhythm of the mind, and a calm mind is irresistible. The second point is the gaze. It's not challenging. It's not seductive. It's calm, steady, present. It's the gaze of someone who isn't seeking answers, just observing. The third point is movement. Nothing is rushed. Nothing is exaggerated. A man with self-command moves with economy and precision. The body doesn't plead. The body shows. It shows that you're there by choice and that you can leave just the same. The posture is upright. The energy is contained. The tone of voice is stable. And all of this communicates something the female mind registers immediately. He doesn't depend on me. And when that feeling arrives, the game changes. Because there's nothing more magnetic than a man who can lose you and still doesn't panic. A man who, in the face of silence, remains whole. A man who, even seeing the distance, doesn't shrink to avoid pain. The mind of an integrous man emits a silent message. I'm here, but I don't need you to be. That energy doesn't scream, doesn't beg, doesn't demand. It simply carries weight, presence that carries weight even from afar, and because of that is never forgotten. The man who is whole fears no one's absence. You don't need to convince her to come back. You don't need to try to reignite what she herself extinguished. You don't need to chase something that, if it were meant to stay, should have had roots, not promises. The turning point isn't making her love you again. It's loving yourself, even when she chooses to walk away. It's holding on to what's left of you, even after she stops holding what you had together. Seneca said, "The man who is whole fears no one's absence." And that's exactly it. You don't fear absence when you are whole. You don't bow when you know what you carry. You don't fall apart when someone leaves because you didn't lose yourself trying to please. The real reconquest isn't emotional. It's energetic. She feels when you're no longer dependent. She notices when you start walking with focus again, and that touches something deep within her, because a woman might walk away, but she never forgets the man who held his dignity in the face of her silence. You didn't beg, you didn't bend, you didn't dramatize. You stood tall, and that leaves a mark. Maybe she'll come back, maybe she won't, but the victory was never about that. The victory is in returning to yourself, in no longer betraying yourself, in not abandoning yourself to hold on to someone who didn't want to stay. End with this: don't try to reignite the fire. Become the fuel itself, because the man who becomes his own center is the only one who, even without effort, becomes unforgettable.